call the meeting to order. Stand for the pledge of allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Any changes to the agenda?
Yes. Mr. Mayor, Council, you'll note that there was a revised agenda. We added authorized hire of a police officer under general business based on the resignation of an officer last week.
All right, can I get a motion to approve as revised?
So moved.
Any discussion?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We have one presentation. New Prague Area Schools. Floor is yours, sir.
Thank you for having me. I'm sorry there's a little mishap on the time, so if you came a little early, like a couple of my bosses did, I apologize for that. Andy Valma, Superintendent of the New Prague Area Schools, and happy to be here. I'd also like it noted that every time the Vikings play on Thursday night, I come to this City Council meeting. It's like a yearly event, so note that on my evaluation this year, please. I'm happy to be here. I would mention that we have two board members here, Karen Steinhoff and Kim Holden as well, who are a part of the New Prague Area School Board. So I will run through our Proud Tradition and Promising Future referendum campaign. Tom, this was going to be our signal, right, to go to the next slide. It's about 2.5 years of work that I'll do my best to condense to 15, 20 minutes, and I'll try to take a few questions at the end. I'll save some time. I'm not here tonight to tell people how to vote. I'm here to share information about what I think is, and what I have said now for the last several months, is mission critical to our school district. And you'll see we have two different logos on the left-hand side. Is our information campaign. We have people who are working at the site level. We have people who are working at the district level. On the right-hand side, my right-hand side, is the advocacy group. That's a group of citizens who are volunteering their time, and they are indeed encouraging people to vote yes. I'm not here tonight to do that. I'm here to share more information about our campaign. There are 3 issues that school districts across the state are facing, and you'll see there are 329 school districts in the state of Minnesota. And of all districts are facing these 3 issues. It becomes a little bit more interesting and a little bit more dynamic in New Prague because we don't have we've had declining enrollment, but we have flat enrollment. So Mr. Terry and I were able to connect earlier this week and very excited to see the level of development happening in this community. That's good for the community, I believe. I think it's also good for the school system. But the 3 factors are listed here. We've had funding that has not kept up with the rate of inflation, and that's really a 20-year issue. If you look at school funding over the last 20 years, it's been a little better the last couple of years, but on average, it's been about 2%. And we know inflation is at least 2%, and so our expenses have hardly been able to keep up with our expenses because of the funding that we've had. We have partially and unfunded mandates coming from the state and federal government that are challenges to us, and it's also costs more money to educate kids. I started in school administration way back in 2004 in Rochester, and I tell people we had a computer lab. We had 25 computers, and people would go, you may remember them, and people would go into their Apple IIe, and you would learn how to type, and now every one of our students has a device. And so there's infrastructure costs in terms of high-speed internet, there's the device costs, there's the repair, there's purchasing new devices, and then there's also costs for professional development. So we're not using just those devices just for word processing, we're really using them to change the way that we educate. Those 3 factors that are listed there are challenges that schools across the state, across the country, are facing. It's been more of an issue in New Prague for the last decade plus because of enrollment. You can go on. So the school board has done their best to use data as much as possible to inform themselves as to what their next steps should be. And you'll see on the next slide that our request is a $2 million a year request for 10 years, which will bring in $510 per pupil. It equates to about $2 million a year. And so it's a $20 million request, and there is an inflationary factor built into our request. I think as you will see later on, I would argue this is a modest request, all things considered, and there is obviously a tax impact. So the tax impact, when we look at the 160 square miles of the New Prague area schools, the average home value, $400,000, seems to be a fair number. And so it might be lower here or higher here, but when we look across all of the communities that we represent, $400,000 is the number that we use. And this is a great plug for the information pages on our school website. I think there's a lot of information there, a lot of really good information there, including a tax calculator that people can go to, type in their address, and see what the actual tax impact would be. So how would we use this money? This is really a maintenance request. This is about maintaining the programs that we think are important, that our families and community have come to expect. It's a harder sell because it's about maintaining. It's not about adding a new school or adding a theater or some sort of athletic facility. This goes into the positions and programs that we currently have. And in order to quantify that, we have those in these 4 buckets. They are maintaining class sizes, which we'll go into, maintaining our transportation services, maintaining programming, and avoiding future budget reductions. And what we have said is these are generally specific, right? So I have said to the school board that if and when we need to make a significant budget reduction, we're talking $1 million plus, I don't know what that number would be, because our funding is based on the student enrollment that we have, and it changes. It's dynamic. It changes year to year. But these are the buckets that are going to need to be negatively impacted. One would be class sizes. You can see on the screen, these are the average class sizes for our 3 elementary schools, our 1 middle school, and our high school classroom in our high school. And they are averages. There are some classes at New Prague High School that are closer to 40 than they are 30. And so if we need to increase class sizes, we do so by reducing staff, and that means our class sizes go up, and we're hoping to maintain these averages. The next is transportation services. We're continue to do great things. Our transportation fleet traversed about 867,000 miles last year, which I think is quite amazing. There's 160 square miles, and you think about just the day-to-day, plus the activities, the athletics that our transportation fleet moves students to and from. Right now, we have a walking distance of about a half mile at elementary and 1 mile at secondary. If we needed to make reductions, we could make that 1.0 and 2. And so that not only means that students who live in town would walk longer, they would have a longer walk. It also means that if you don't live if you live in a rural area, you're going to be on the bus longer. So what this does is this means that we're going to have to unfortunately take out additional bus routes, which means kids walk if you're in the city, and chances are that if you are in one of our rural areas, you're going to have a longer bus ride. The third is programming, and this is harder to quantify. But I'll say this to you, that we benefit from the 7-period day. I would say this, our students and our families benefit from the 7-period day. So a student who enters into New Prague High School has an opportunity to take 56 classes during their 4 years at a New Prague High School. The 7-period day is a model that we would like, and we would like to continue to support, but we don't know if we'll be able to afford to support it. So a logical step would be, if we can't afford this, we would go to something like the 6-period day. In a 7-period day, you have 56 opportunities. In the 6-period day, you have 48. And you need 47 to graduate. So your electives, your exploratories, your things like the arts, where you get to do things where it's your passion, automotives, construction trades, those types of things, plus the fact that's usually where our students take their PSEO credits, their college in our schools, where they're able to get credit before they go on to a post-secondary, if that is their hope and dream. Those opportunities are significantly reduced. And so we would hope to continue to support the 7-period day at both the high school and the middle school. And we have made, and you can go to the next slide, Tom, by doing these things, we're hoping to avoid budget reductions. you can go on. I know that my time is limited, so I'll do my best. We have made over $7 million in reductions, or close to $7 million in reductions, since the spring of '23. And it's not just, one of the questions that I get from the community is if your enrollment is going down, why aren't you making reductions all the time? And we are. Last year, we made over $500,000 in reductions in cost containments, we would refer to them as. We didn't need to do it, but we did it in preparation for future budget reductions that may have to take place. And we did that because we have fewer elementary students this year than we did last year. So we didn't need as many elementary school teachers, so we contained costs, looking at where our ratios were, and we made the unfortunate and the difficult decision to reduce about 6.5 of our elementary school teachers. So, if you are interested in school finance, and my running joke is I don't know why you would be, but this slide is here for you. 83% of our resources come from the state. 12% are local, and 2 are federal. Of the school districts in Minnesota, the numbers fluctuate a little bit percentage-wise, one way or the other, but this is structurally how schools are funded. And as I talk about being an advocate for public education, this next slide shows that we're not alone in this. All of our neighbors are going out to their constituents, and Mr. Bauman was here, I understand, a month ago. Is that right? I think Mr. Bauman is a lot faster on responding to Mr. Terry. He must have known the Viking schedule than I, so he had first crack at it. I'll give him a hard time next time I see him. But there's an issue. Every one of these districts are going to their voters asking for more money, and there are 2 who are not, Jordan and Northfield. And I won't pose the question that I posed to everybody else, and why aren't they? It's because they did last year. And Northfield's request was for $130 million. $20 million is a lot of money. It's a very reasonable and I believe fair request for our school district as we go forward. So, taxes, no one wants to talk about taxes and no one wants to see their taxes go up. And I will tell you that on behalf of our school district, who I have inherited a history of being very fiscally conservative, and I would argue being very good steward of taxpayers' investment into our schools. As taxes have gone up, the school district's contribution to those taxes have actually gone down over the last 3 years. Part of it is because of enrollment, but part of it is because of our good financial stewardship. We've had debt falling off, and so on an average price home in the 160 square miles of our school district, taxes have gone down by $15 over the last 3 years. I'm going to make the case, and I'm going to ask people, and we're going to ask people to consider for that $15 back plus 5 more, and that is our, what I would like to say, reasonable request. So, I'm just about done. You can continue on, please. Again, and we would argue, and we'd make the case that this is reasonable. Comparison, some people like it, some people don't. Tom, you can just cycle through this. If this funding is approved, you will see that we're still in the very bottom half of, not that fast. We're still in the bottom half of where we are in terms of our local comparisons, which you'll see on the left-hand side of the screen. The statewide average is 15,412. The local average is 13,711. And if this were to be approved, we were at 12,333, knowing that a lot of our neighbors are asking voters for additional funds as well. I think this is a great testament to the work that the New Prague area schools have done well before I got here. If you think of the class sizes that we benefit from, the facilities that we have, the 7-period day that we've been able to support, and the revenue that we have is lower than most school districts in the state, and our neighbors especially, and to have all those things that we have benefited from, that our community expects from us, I take as a great tribute to the work that the people have done prior to me coming here. I really do. And so this is we would argue, a modest request. I said before, there are 329 school districts in the state, and we're in the bottom 4% in terms of the revenue that we receive. If we were so fortunate, it's a couple weeks from now, to have this request approved, we would maybe be in the bottom 15%. So when we look at this in comparison, if that's helpful to you, in comparison to where other school districts are at, this would bring us up to, and like I said, the bottom 15 to 20%, if that. And the last thing that I would say before I'm opened up for any questions that people have is that one of the things that I think people should be very proud of is this chart right here. 47% of our money goes to our classrooms. And when I talk to teachers, I talk to families, I talk to community members, I would hope your head is going like this, because that's where you want the money to be. You want the money to be in your classrooms, right? And when you look at our local average and you can see the statewide average, 48% of our budget is going into the classrooms. We provide some of the best special education services that I have seen, and I've had the benefit of working in several school districts, and we do it at a less of a rate than local and state average. Our administrative costs are actually less than this because we just had a position that we didn't hire back. We can't run a close to $7 million with less administrators than we have, and our money is in our classrooms. That's a tribute to what I've inherited, what we've continued to build. It's also our biggest challenge. So if reductions have to be made, I don't make threats and I don't make promises, but what I have said to the many of these presentations that I have had the opportunity to give is if we need to make additional reductions, they will come from our classrooms. That's just the logical spot where they will have to be. And this chart, I think, just reinforces that point. We're pushing early voting. We encourage everyone to vote. We're not telling you again how to vote. We have made it, I think, as easy as possible to vote. I know it's a challenge. There's a distance challenge from Elko New Market to come to the district office, but we're encouraging people to get out early and to vote, and you can see the information is on your screen. And again, I just want to thank you all for the work that you do. I get an opportunity to meet with Mr. Terry quite often, and I think we've got a good working relationship that I have appreciated. And we want to continue to be good partners with you as the city grows and as hopefully the school district continues to grow and prosper. So I will take any questions that you may have. And I'm really proud that I did that in only 16 minutes, because that's about as quick as I've done it, so.
No, that's a good question. When I heard Josh was gonna give rides to New Prague, so, if people need voting.
So we're gonna need an increase too.
Okay. So you touched on the early voting, latest numbers. I think I heard some this morning, but I'll let you say.
Yeah, I think, I don't remember the latest numbers. I think they're good.
Okay.
They're solid. I've really challenged people to get to the polls and to get the polls early. You know, one of the things that isn't in this slide deck that I would remind people is that, you know, I'm going to leave here and watch the Vikings game. I want you to know that. I'm going to listen to it on the way home, and as you guys are here, then I'm going to watch it.
You're gonna watch us on YouTube.
Yeah, then I will watch this too. But being a superintendent's a lot like being a quarterback. And I get a lot of credit, probably too much when something goes well, and I get probably too much blame when things don't go well, right? It's the nature of the job, and I accept that. I've heard, you know, all the different reasons why we didn't pass in the fall of ʼ23, and we lost by 36 votes. And I'll be honest with you, the reason why we didn't pass in the fall of '23 is our families didn't go to the polls.
39%, right?
39% of our families voted in the election in the fall of '23, and again, we lost by 36 votes. So I have challenged our staff and our families, especially our families, that this is important to you. You need to get to the polls.
Well, and I bring up the early voting because I'll be the bad guy here and say that only 16 Elko New Market residents have shown up for the early voting out of the over 1,000, or however, whatever the good number is.
I don't know if that's true, Mr. Berg, but
It's super low. It's unfortunately low.
last time I checked, it was 54, but that's a whole nother story. It's not
perfect.
16, but
Whatever, I heard 16 when Adam said this
yeah,
morning,
your
whatever.
numbers might be a little off, but
Anyway, I guess my point is, we need to get people out to vote. And I say this with a huge asterisk. I live in the Lakeville School District and open enroll my 3 kids to New Prague. So I'm gonna pay the Lakeville School District increase if they pass theirs, and I'm advocating for New Prague's increase for the 3 kids that we have. But I mean, that 39% just sticks. Like,
Yeah.
it's just like, come on, man. You can't even get 50% of our families. I mean, 50% is like, shouldn't even be a stretch. So, I mean, we got to get people to show up and care. And I think one of the things when we're talking about the bus routes or the walking, you know, maybe we haven't felt it as much here because of the distance where Eagle View is to some of our neighborhoods. We will feel it. And I'm tempted to go hand out or take like little tape or the tree marking things and hanging on people's doorknobs of you will be within walking distance if we have to increase the bus routes this time into, you know, that neighborhood right there, any new developments. So we will feel it.
I think that's one, thank you for that, and I would hold off on that door knocking just yet, but that's up to you. I think one of the challenges is when school districts, and we're no different, when you make budget reductions, you do your darndest to keep them away from the classrooms, so people don't feel them. But they're felt, they're significant, and again, people instead of running a campaign where we're trying to scare people, or threaten people, that's not what we do. I don't make threats. We're really trying to remind people that this is what is important to you, and this is what you appreciate, and this is what you expect, and this is about kids. It's not about anything else. It's about the kids that are in the new Prague area schools, and it's about the students and the families that are yet to come.
Well, I say kudos to just everybody getting the information out, whether it's just the informational or the advocacy folks. I was getting my hair cut in Savage the other day, and somebody was saying, hey, I actually saw it on Facebook this year, and I didn't see it as much, or whatever social media thing a couple years ago. So I think whatever is changed or the extra steps that are happening are hopefully going to pay off.
Thank you for that. Any other questions? If you have other questions that anyone has, whether the members of the council or greater community, you can always email me. There's also information on the school webpage. I think it's nplevy@isd721.org. When we receive questions, we do our best to respond as quickly as possible, and we would encourage people to become informed and to vote. So thank you very much. I appreciate the partnership and I appreciate the time. Thank you very much.
Enjoy the game.
Thank you.
It's still 0-0.
How do you know that?
Check.
Is there anybody else for a presentation? No? Is anybody here for a public comment and for anything that's not on the agenda? Hearing none, we'll move on to consent. Get a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll motion. Second.
Any discussion on A, B, or C? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. No public hearings. Move on to general business. Let's start.
Give me a second here to share my screen.
Absolutely.
All right, so this discussion item is regarding the old PD building and property located at 26518 France Avenue. For reference, if you're unfamiliar, that's just south of Quick Trip and the racetrack. So the building is a one-story structure enclosing approximately 4,800 square feet on a 1.86 acre parcel. The building formerly served as a school, as a post office, city hall, and police department. The building includes an original structure, an addition on the southwest corner, and a garage. The date of construction of the original structure is approximately 1910, and it's suspected that the addition was built in the 1970s or 80s. In the early part of the last decade, the City Council decided on a phased remodeling of the building for continued use as the police department. The work was planned to be phased out over a few years. Phase 1 was to make the police station handicap accessible. Handicapped accessibility improvement to the front entrance was completed in 2013. Phase 2 was to construct the garage. This happened in 2014. Phase 3 was tuck pointing the exterior of the building, completed in the summer of 2015. And Phase 4 was intended to be the interior improvements to meet code, OSHA, and ADA standards, which has not yet been completed. During the initial design effort for Phase 4 in 2019, it was determined that it was a better alternative to relocate the police department as an addition onto City Hall here, and what will become the future municipal campus. It was decided in 2021 to complete mold remediation, demolition of interior walls, and structural work on the building to preserve it as an asset until it could be repurposed for a future use. Here are some present-day photos of the building. The former police department garage is currently being leased to Hope for the Community Food Shelf. Several facilities are being leased by Elko Baseball Club, and a portion of the main building is being used for city storage on an interim basis. At the March 28th, 2024 City Council meeting, staff sought feedback from the City Council on the future of the property, specifically on the composition of an advisory work group composed of stakeholders that would discuss the future of the building and property and bring back the item to the council with recommendations. The recommendations the group intended to formulate involved a recommendation on the current structure's future, the future use of the site, and recommendations related to layout and design to accompany that future use. Council directed that group, which we've called the Old PD Study Work Group, to be comprised of the following stakeholders: a council member, a parks commissioner, planning commissioner, a representative from Hope for the Community Food Shelf, representative from Elko Baseball, and 3 at-large citizens. The City Council approved the following committee members at the May 23rd, 2024 meeting. Councilmember Gina Stiles, who was replaced by Amanda Novak, Parks Commissioner Paul Hoekness, Planning Commissioner Melissa Hansen, Jim Malkin for the Hope for the Community Food Shelf, Brad Fredrickson, Elko Baseball, Jimmy Adolphus, Josh Smith, and Jody Lucast as the at-large citizens, and then myself, Tom, and Public Works Director Corey Schweik. The Old PD Study Work Group met a total of 6 times from November 24 to May 2025. The work group was tasked with the overarching question of what does the future hold for this building and property? The group determined 3 high-level options to the question: demolition, sell, or save. The group utilized a decision tree to help work through the process and used these 3 options as a framework for which to ensure that every one of these 3 options was vetted thoroughly. The first of the 3 core options the group vetted was demolition. Some considerations for this option are as follows: would it be a partial demolition or a full demolition? What would the property be utilized after the demo? The work group established that there were 2 options for demolition: sell the lot with demolition of the structure as a condition of the sale, or demolish the structure, partial or whole, and maintain ownership. The work group created a list of pros and cons, which are shown on the slide. The pros include allowing reutilization of the property, enhanced remaining uses in the event of a partial demo, potential cost savings, more open space and parking, and it creates the opportunity to construct a new structure. The cons include the cost to replace the space, loss of value, loss of history, throwing away previous capital improvements, and displacing the food shelf. One of the major cons noted was throwing away the previous capital investments that I went through a few slides back. The total cost of these improvements is approximately $425,000 over the past 12 years, noting that all the work done through 2015 was completed under the assumption that the structure would be used as a police department building. So there are several cost factors that are relevant when discussing demolition. The 3 main costs associated are asbestos and regulated waste inspection, followed by the abatement of the asbestos and hazardous waste, and of course the demolition itself. It isn't possible to know the actual price without going out for bids, but staff estimated a total cost ranging from $60,000 to $100,000 based off 2 home demolitions done in 2024 by the city and an estimate from an industry expert. The list of considerations comprised by the group regarding demolition and keeping the property in city ownership is as follows. Full demolition displaces the food shelf and creates an additional need for city storage. Partial demolition eliminates city storage and creates a need for additional space, which also has costs associated. Partial or full demolition both incur a loss of the structure, which was used as an old school building, resulting in a loss of perceived history and city pride. Also cost to replace the space. So cost varies depending on what would be constructed, but a range of $400 to $500 per square foot approximately be the cost to build a new community center, for example. The current building is approximately 4,800 square feet, resulting in an approximate cost of a new building of similar size at just under $2 million. A list of considerations comprised by the group regarding demolition and selling the property is as follows. Adjustment of the property line would be required. I'll go into much more detail about that later. For now, I'm going to skip it. The second of the 3 core options the group vetted was the sell option. There are 2 main options outlined as part of this option: sell with demolition as a requirement or sell as is. The city has some control over what could be built, utilizing zoning. The city can zone the property to a district found suitable. The work group created a list of pros and cons, which are shown on the slide. The singular pro identified was possible revenue from the sale. The cons included loss of an asset, limited options for reuse based on acreage, ball field, and parking, and the need to amend the current lease agreements the city has with both the food shelf and with Elko Baseball. Listed considerations are as follows. Proximity to the baseball field has a depreciating factor. Variances would be required for both the buyer and Elko Baseball due to the lack of setbacks. Elko Baseball would lose their parking area. An encroachment agreement would likely be necessary to accommodate for a new parking area, potentially to the west. Staff met with multiple real estate agents to garner feedback on the potential sale. The real estate agents had varying opinions, and the results are as follows. The highest and best use would be either multifamily housing, potentially a triplex, or a daycare. One of them recommended to sell as is rather than to sell and demolish. Limiting value in selling, stating that it would be best demolished if there is no viable use for the city. The approximate resale ranges from $200,000 to $300,000 as it stands today. Additionally, the group considered who the building would be sold to. The options the group discussed were a developer, a housing agency, or nonprofit, Elko Baseball, and some other options were also briefly discussed. The final option discussed by the old PD study work group was the save option. Throughout the process, the group kept coming back to this option. There was an immense amount of community pride ingrained within the group. Keeping the property in city ownership and the structure intact was an impactful factor in the decision-making process. The work group created a list of pros and cons, which are shown on the slide. The pros identified by the group is preservation of city pride and history, keeping the food shelf operational, keep temporary space for city storage as we utilize the existing space while we prep for the refurbishment. The property appreciates in value, and we could potentially add a much-needed community space for our residents. A list of considerations by the group regarding saving the property is as follows. What should the building be repurposed to? Does the garage remain available to hope for the community? And does city storage remain, or is that room included in the repurposing? There were various options discussed as it pertains to what the use of the building and property would be if it were saved. Shown are the core options that the group discussed. So flexible community space, business incubator, expanded city storage, community education space, daycare housing, and a free store, which is like a retail-like store where people can take items they need at no cost. The work group continually discussed flexible community space throughout the process, and it was acknowledged that there is a lack of this type of service within the city. The final decision made by the group was to recommend that the city retain ownership of the building and repurpose it into a flexible community space. As I've stated, this work group was inundated with city pride. The group discussed the desire for an area located within the remodeled structure that would be a kind of like a museum-like relic of historic Elko and historic New Market with potentially photos and newspaper articles. This would be included as part of the recommendation to repurpose the building into a flexible community space. The group also made the decision that if we are going to remodel the building, it makes more sense to do the entire thing, including the area used for city storage. So staff would recommend that an alternative space be constructed for city storage prior to the remodeling of this old PD structure, which would be included as part of the cost factor of the project. So staff intend to approach the project as a two-phase remodel. Phase one being the concept development and cost estimation for the repurposed structure, and phase two being the actual remodel and construction work. City staff met with 3 architectural firms to discuss phase one, with 2 of those firms providing us with a sample scope of work and cost estimate in a timely enough fashion for me to use it in this discussion. Broadly described, the scope of work for phase one would include a concept level plans and visualizations, a preliminary cost estimate, and approximately 2 meetings with the old PD study work group to discuss visioning and programming. The cost estimate for phase one provided by the architectural firms ranged from $18,000 to $24,000. There are 2 current lease agreements associated with the property, Elko Baseball Club and Hope for the Community. Hope for the Community is a nonprofit food shelf organization that utilizes the garage to meet the needs of their food shelf operations and storage and assembly of food on an interim basis. They entered into a 5-year lease agreement with us on January 1st, 2021, with no rent being charged, and the lease was amended in late in 2023 to grant the lessee access to the bathroom, which is located inside the building. The recommendation from the work group is to allow the food shelf to remain and continue operation as is. Elko Baseball Club is currently involved in a lease agreement with the city to gain access to the field, use of the parking lot, use of the pavilion and concession stand, and to allow for various structures to be constructed on what is technically city property, such as the grandstand. The 30-year lease, entered into in 2004 for the sum of $1, was changed in 2014 to a 5-year lease, which automatically renews for 1-year terms, beginning in 2023. So now we're on a perpetual 1-year automatically renewing lease. The club also pays an annual fee of $150 to the city to assist with maintenance and improvements of the parking lot area. Elko Baseball has expressed interest in adjusting the property line to encompass the entirety of the field, along with their structures that are currently located on city property. Staff assumed that if the city council was willing to sell a portion of the land and reconfigure the property line, that the new westerly property line would fall somewhere between the old PD building and the concession stand. You can't see my mouse, but it's the only logical spot, really. Some considerations to factor in when discussing this item. The city attorney made the determination that since this land is a public asset, in the event of a sale, the city would be required to sell it for fair market value. Variances, an encroachment agreement, and a parking agreement minimally would be necessary to fulfill this change. Additionally, the building official has indicated potential associated costs due to the lack of setbacks between the concession stand and the OPD building, which would put the property line somewhere between 3 and 4 feet from each structure. Some of these costs associated includes a 1-hour wall, which involves fire-resistant construction. It also includes potential concerns of occupancy loads when the structure is fully operable, which would require 2 exits. Logically, one of which being the back door that already exists that leads to where the property line would be located if it were moved. And these exits are supposed to go to a public way, but under these pretenses, that exit would not achieve that. So the recommendation is to bring this item back as a standalone item at a future city council meeting for further discussion. That is if council is interested in exploring the option of moving the property line. So the city council is being asked to discuss and provide direction as it pertains to the recommendations laid out by city staff in conjunction with the old PD advisory work group. The recommendations are as follows. The work group recommends this structure be owned by the city and remodeled as a flexible community space. The work group recommends adjusting the Elko baseball property line to encompass the entirety of the field, along with their structures that are currently located on city property. Staff would ask the council to consider this as a separate item that would be brought back in the future. The work group recommends extending the lease for Hope for the Community to continue their food shelf operation out of the garage. And finally, the work group recommends the construction of alternative space for city storage prior to the remodel. That's it. Let me know if you have any questions, and looking forward to discussion.
Recommend that the council take each question at a time and give feedback direction on each of those, except to the extent there might be relationship or overlap.
I think the idea of making it into a community center would be the logical plan for item 1.
I mean, I agree. I was on the committee. Brandon did an awesome job herding cats. There was a lot going on in those meetings. He did a very good job. But yeah, so, I mean, my grandma went to school there. I have a lot of feelings about the building, so I wanted it to be kept. I'm sure that my family will be able to contribute to the, history section of the building. I know we're ways out from that, but yeah, so I was on board with this recommendation.
I'm on board too.
Well, I mean, just looking at the save slide, obviously that was gonna be the recommendation, because they only came up with one con. I wrote down a whole list of other, not necessarily cons, because I'm totally supportive of keeping it, but I mean, we gotta be realistic too. It's not just the cost of the remodel, it's the loss of revenue from the sale, but then the ongoing taxes, it's the maintenance costs, the utility costs, the resources of the concept development and implementation. So a lot of that stuff, it doesn't sound like a lot, but in totality, that's a lot of time, money, and effort. So, I mean, just to be cognizant and aware of that, and which is why then I think we need to be looking at like a bonding ask or request for other sorts of funding streams to come in, because, I mean, that just seems logical. But I'm totally supportive of keeping it, but I think that was it was a nice recommendation, but it just, there's a lot of details left to be determined, obviously, which
I will say that it was tough to get the group to play along, if you will, with
the devil, or the opposite.
making
Yeah.
cons for not having that as an option.
Mhm.
So if the council's direction is to continue to move forward down that path, staff's recommendation is that we should do some phase one architectural work, which is essentially identifying conceptually how it would be remodeled and then identifying a cost to do that. Those are the two basic things you need to be able to have policy discussions or have community discussions related to it. As Brandon indicated, we contacted a number of firms that do that kind of work. And we had 3 that came and talked to us and 2 that actually gave us, took the time and effort to give us an estimated budget. But it'd be $18,000 to $24,000, $25,000. 24. So as we talked through the budget process, at that time the council said, "Hey Tom, how much is it going to cost?" And I said, "I don't know." And now we have a number. What we discussed at that time was that it's not currently within the preliminary budget. You have basically, there's 3 options that I think they're out there. One, you can utilize contingency that we currently have still remaining within the working budget to fund this, and we adjust the budget accordingly. 2, the council had also discussed that we could evaluate where we are mid-2026, third quarter 2026, and determine whether or not there was capacity within that budget to do the work at that time, or just simply wait until we develop the 2027 budget and then incorporate the necessary resources at that time. So if you want to move forward, our recommendation is you need to fund it, but when and how do you guys want to do that? And then we would bring something forward appropriately.
I mean, I think we have to do it now, because I can't know how to look at 2, 3, 4 without knowing what the costs are gonna be for, and what we could potentially build this into, because if, we determine it's gonna be better this, we don't wanna give up that property line. I don't wanna go down that path. Or, if we want to reconsider extending a lease, which I wouldn't recommend we do at this point, we got until 2026. And so we get closer to that. So, I mean, I think this is an absolute must, and I say take it from the contingency, and then we have it.
Agreed.
I mean,
So moved.
Josh loves the contingencies.
but the contingency is for things like this, things that we didn't plan for.
But wait, Josh, weren't you saying that we should get rid of the contingency?
I was sorry, we may.
Actively getting rid of
Or
the
it's just,
contingency.
So staff is clear. What I'm hearing is direction from the council that we should move forward within the working budget to accommodate the expense for this work in what we bring back to you in final draft budget in December. And then you can make more decisions at that time. Okay.
How about the property line? Do we want to mess with that right now?
I just had a question because I know legally we'd have to sell it. Do we have an idea of no clue?
No, I think on this particular topic, I would recommend that the council schedule that for a future discussion. There's a couple of reasons for it. One, there's no representatives from the ball team here tonight. Brandon and I know from past discussions, and Amanda will confirm this, they would like an opportunity to make their pitch, is to move it. Also, Brandon, through his research on this, had identified a number of complications related to it. It might be good to provide us time to, if the council's interested in this, to flesh those out a little bit more from that standpoint. One thing to point out is, as we can see, they can do everything and continue to operate as they've operated today. The question the council might want to ask is, why do we need to move why is it necessary to move the property line? They've indicated they would, basically what they said, we'd like to own the whole ball field and its associated facilities, lock, stock, and barrel. That's the explanation that they've provided. But there's a lot of moving parts on that, so we would suggest that that should really be a freestanding discussion, if the council's agreeable to that.
Yes,
Works for me.
I see heads nodding yes. So we won't talk about it, we'll move that one for another time.
We'll schedule that. That would be a December or January discussion at this point. Brandon, what would you anticipate?
I mean, yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, December.
Extending the lease for whole public community.
I think that's a no-brainer.
It's a yearly re-up, right? So
I believe
want-
it's a
It's
5 year.
due.
So we could amend it to the initial 5 years and do an amendment that it would be a year by year after that. That would still provide the flexibility that Josh was talking about, but if it takes us a period of time to pull this together,
Which it will.
which it will, then there's lack of uncertainty in their future as far as how they're operating.
Tom, is there an issue with the use of the bathroom if you want to go forward with a remodel?
I think where Josh was going with it is, once we know what that might look like, I think that would be a consideration in the actual design. It would have to, at least under the current lease, and the recommendation, accommodate their ability to continue to have access to the bathrooms or to provide separate bathroom facilities.
Just something that you might want to consider if you're going to extend it or provide for some sort of an amendment that would recognize that potential for remodel and the need to maybe go back to porta potties or something on a temporary basis.
Which is why, I mean, it always feels like a separate standalone discussion, which would be normal part of the renewal of the lease, and then, you know, maybe instead of a 5 year, let's do a year or two, so that it's more reasonable if something changes with the path that we take with this.
Would you guys want to wait some period of time before you actually took action on any sort of amendment to the lease, or would you want to take an action on an interim amendment that would get us down the road a certain distance?
I think an interim makes most sense if we're gonna move forward with, because we don't know where we're gonna be in 24 months from now, if we give them a 5 year.
But what
Yeah,
I'm
it
hearing
could
is an
be-
adjustment that provides us maximum flexibility
Yeah.
if we need it.
And assurances for them. I mean, for
Yep.
the same reason the team wants to own that, is because they don't want in 5 years or 10 years, we say, yeah, we're taking the half that's ours or whatever.
Taking first base.
Right, so, I mean, for the same reasons, they need the assurances too, so I totally get that.
Okay. The last item maybe I'll point out, so right now we use roughly a third
Yeah.
of the interior space of the main structure for storage for the city. Logically, if you're gonna remodel that to an alternative space, you have to have some place to go with it. We don't currently have a place to go with it. We went there because we ran out of space where it was. So, as councils know, based on my updates, probably December, probably most likely January, we'll be returning to the council to start talking about additions to the Public Works campus for facilities. That facility was basically built with no elbow room for expansion a decade ago. And we're at the point where we really need to be looking at something. One of the options that will be presented would be to actually provide, at least on a long-term interim basis, a place to go with that type, or create space to meet those types of needs. So on that one, I think I don't know that there's much direction that we would need at this point, except to make the council aware of it, and a possible solution may be presented as we begin discussions about the Public Works campus.
Okay,
If you guys are okay with that.
Works for me.
I'm okay with it, I'm just working it out in my head.
I would like to echo Amanda's thoughts. This was a large, vague project with a variety of great people, but wide variety of opinions. And so getting some level of consensus and clear recommendations was a bit of a challenge, but I think you did an excellent job at that.
Okay, we got that one, good?
I think So, yeah, covered it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Authorize hire for a police officer.
This is an item that would normally be under consent agenda, but given the timing of it, we placed it under general business because it was late to the agenda. But we did have one of our officers resign last week, so that creates another vacancy in the department. We'd be asking for council authorization to fill that vacancy. As the council's aware, we currently have 3 authorized positions that are vacant. 1 was an expansion, 2 were existing positions. In practice, this would simply mean that we would continue hiring process until we fill them based on the applicant pools and our bandwidth within the department to move new officers through field training. Based on discussions in the department, the sergeant and chief have indicated that the maximum number of officers that we can have in field training at any point in time is realistically 2. So it's not like we're going to hire 3 people at the same time unless there's some sort of a staggered timing on their hiring. So.
Okay, you need a motion or just
Yep.
approval?
We just need a motion to authorize the city administrator to fill the vacancy.
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Concludes general business reports.
I'd sent an email to council related to the grand opening event for Niagara for an RSVP. They've also asked whether or not the city wants to provide any remarks, which is typical when you have large projects or any grand openings. I've asked the mayor for direction on that, and also would ask the council that if you are planning to attend, please RSVP in the immediate future. A couple of reasons. 1, they need to know for planning, and 2, we need to know if it's something that we would need to post as a public meeting.
Okay, so that's, I'm gonna try to make it. Who else is gonna try to make it, just so we know?
I'll be
I'm out of town.
I will not be there.
Okay, so we'll just need to hear something from Kate.
Okay.
And then, all right, anything for Public Works?
Corey had nothing.
Josh?
I have 3. One is, we are doing the open house with the fire department on Sunday. And we've got our interviews on Tuesday. And then the third one is, I just want to formally acknowledge Tom's pun about the pitching during the discussion with the baseball team being in the meeting, because it was criminally understood. So, Tom, I appreciate that. It made me good.
I can always count on you, Josh.
No fire. Floor is yours, get your dad joke?
Yeah, Kate's not here to enjoy it, but I'll give it a shot here. And I was gonna go with a Halloween theme one here, given the 'tis the season. Why don't skeletons fight each other? It's because they don't have the guts. That's all I got. So unless you guys have anything else for me.
That's bad.
Luke, could you provide an update on the construction at the Highlands?
Yes, Rich is a little bit more in tune with that one, but they were working on storm sewer. I know today was going back and forth with our inspector a little bit out there in that one. So things are progressing here. I would anticipate that they'd be moving into street grading and stuff here within the next week or so.
Thank you.
All right, anything else for community development that we haven't talked about already?
Community development, we are working hard still on the Sullivan concept plan for that 80 acres. He's very anxious to get that property annexed in the city so he can proceed with his public hearings related to actually developing the property. Also, we're starting some code amendments now that the summer season is over. Planning Commission meeting next Tuesday, just put out a packet. The only thing on the agenda is to begin the discussion on minimum lot size adjustments, see if they're needed, get some direction from the Planning Commission on that. Then we'll move into possible shoreland ordinance amendments and reviewing our sexually oriented use code.
And was there any, how about parks? There's a line item there.
Nothing specific beyond that, just the next meeting will be in December, and they'll be reviewing the revised concept plan for Eagle View Meadows, Joe Sullivan's project. The major changes related to, as you know, was related to the park area and the developer's attempt to respond to the comments from the Parks Commission and Council.
I would also add that at the last Parks meeting we had, the group made a decision to go forward with temporary pickleball net at Rowena Ponds Park. So the first idea floated around and discussed was temporary nets and paddles. They said no to that. So we brought back an alternative option of a semi-permanent net that's moved seasonally before the ice is filled, and then when it becomes nice out again in the spring. So we have money in the budget for that for 2026, and we plan to do that. So
So we're gonna have pickleball.
we're gonna have one pickleball net out there.
Because before it was like
There'll
bring
be
your
a
own
sign up
net,
for it or something,
right?
or?
Yeah.
No.
No,
Yeah,
it's first
before-
come, first serve?
First come, first serve. Before it was a bring your own, but so there's 3 courts out there, and there's one that's nicer than the other 2.
There's gonna be fights.
Well, they play indoors 3 times a week at the elementary school too. If anyone
Yeah.
wants to join them,
No, they're adults.
they're fun.
No, they'll be fun. But yeah, so you can still bring your own net to the other 2. So.
But there's only 2 over at New Market Township, and I
Those
mean,
ones are nice.
and that's, I mean, and it's busy, but you know when to go there, when it's quieter or whatever.
Yeah, this isn't final product. It's just getting us through the now. So.
Fair enough. CCEC?
We met this week. We discussed the fire rescue days coming back into the committee, and so that will be happening, and we'll start working through that. The biggest topic was the Halloween event that is this Saturday from 10 to noon. If anybody wants to volunteer, we will take you. But yeah,
What are you going as?
I typically go as a whole lot of nothing.
So, the costumes are optional?
Well, I mean, yes, they are optional, but
Yeah.
it's a good time. There's, I'll just say that we have, I think it was 20, oh, I'm gonna get the number wrong. There's a lot of sponsors this year, which was really fun to see, so. Yeah,
Okay,
that's what I got.
all right. Scale? What does that give?
Service delivery for this month was canceled. The executive committee meeting was largely a discussion of upcoming topics for scale and prepping for the regular meeting related to the legislative platform.
I-35?
I was out of town. Did you go, Josh?
Were you at the corner with Tom and,
No, we missed it altogether.
So nothing this month.
no? Hey, you were at the corner, saw it on the Facebook. For
Standing on
the
the corner, you know.
I-35 thing.
Oh,
Oh, and
yeah.
Oh, yes,
Oh,
so,
yeah, yeah.
yep, so we
That's what
had,
he was saying. It's like, what corner are we talking about?
They were up
Tom's
at
spent
the,
some
they were
time in
watching
the
the
corners
traffic
every
at
now and
6 in the morning, and it was on,
I was
like,
very
the Scott County
confused.
page or
Yep.
I
something.
can say that I did not expect that many people to be there, cause I drove through and I was like,
It's a big crew.
why are
That's
there
why I brought it up, 'cause
so
it was-
there was a
many
lot of
fluorescent
reflective vests, yeah.
Yeah, that's why I brought it up.
Yeah, so the county was able to get some high-ranking officials, staff from MnDOT to come down and actually observe the function of the interchange. We had the deputy commissioner, we had the South Metro manager, senior engineering staff, as well as our county commissioner, our state representative, and pretty much most of the relevant senior county staff related to the topic. And we feel it was a good opportunity for them to view what was going on. Whether or not it has a long-term impact on the process of securing funding for the interchange will remain. The county, and especially Renee, lobbied heavily for like a 2030, 2031 timeframe. And really just making the point that it's not just about re-upping the planning documents because they'll just expire again. You have to do something with them, and we can't wait 15, I believe a certain person said, if this is what it looks like today, what's it gonna look in 10 to 15 years? So I think we made an impact. We'll just see if it has an effect. And we do have to appreciate everybody that came out because it was not a nice morning, so.
All right, LMC,
Nothing new.
nothing new? All right. Discussion, looks like you have a line item?
Yes, I'll be quick, but just something been thinking about is doing some sort of like council conversation or connection outside of regular meetings. So wanted to discuss potentially partnering with city and staff on that if there is interest from other people. So thinking like maybe 2 times a year, potentially 3, doing something at the library, potentially also coinciding with family fun nights so we can like bolster attendance. I know oftentimes these things aren't typically well attended, but I think people might have questions, and if they just see, the city off to the side or in a separate room, they might be more willing to ask those questions versus coming and sitting into a full, sometimes intimidating meeting or speaking to a room full of people. I think one-on-one you can get a lot more done. So I know turnout could potentially be low, but just wanted to bounce the idea off of you all and see. I'm more than willing to volunteer my time, but if others want to too, just want to open the floor to that, so.
I would like to tag with you on that, because as we go into the comprehensive, I want to start mapping out public engagement for next year to get community feedback on all the various comprehensive planning components, from parks to utilities to streets to land use. So I've also been thinking about ways we could be off in a corner maybe at community events.
I think that'd be good for marketing too, of like marketing them as like, we have public works this time, or, now we have the police chief, and like different issue sets that if people are like, oh, I actually do have a question for that individual, and then I think it makes us more relatable too. I think oftentimes those one-on-one conversations don't always happen, and obviously we have some intense meetings, so it's good to provide other opportunities for feedback, but.
Yeah, that family fun day would be a great opportunity. It was,
Approximately how many of those do we have each summer or year?
7?
Yeah, I was gonna say 6, 7.
Although next year, I think the number's gonna reduce. If you recall previous update, we're seeing the attendance at those go up substantially, and so they're getting harder to manage in that number. So from a resource standpoint, so we may have to have fewer, bigger events than the number that we have, but it's usually 5 to 7.
And I'll just say, they're usually on Thursday nights, so if we want to attend as council members, they would have to be scheduled differently.
That has been,
Saturday afternoon one. That
that's the
was-
community picnic.
Maybe that'd be that one.
The Thursday night, to be honest, was a pure function of former city administrator Mark Nagel being here for council meetings, and he could double team
Sure,
that
makes sense.
evening. There is no other
Magic.
specific reason that I'm aware of as to why it has to stay on Thursday nights. It's just been traditional at this point.
Yeah, maybe schedule that community picnic. That would have been a great forum where we could have all been there and, like you said, answer any questions. Something to think about next year. Yeah, anything else?
What do next steps look like for that then, Tom?
If this is something that the council wants to do, we can put together a proposal. I can talk to Jess about events that she has coming up and when she might have a schedule, and we can put together some, knowing that you'd be looking at maybe 2 to start. We can always add more. We can put together a proposal as to where and when and what the specific topic might be. I would suggest doing things that people really like talking about, like our special guest might be the police department. Public Works, they don't get nearly as much exposure, but when you talk to residents, a lot of the questions you actually get are related to that and,
I think
and
with
development.
With Public Works, we should do something over at the Public Works facility, the water treatment. I think it's fascinating. I would love another tour, and I probably had two
An
or
open
three of them.
house.
I
And
agree with
Having
you.
one
And
soon,
I
you
think
can
people
join
would
me.
so dig it, and we would get people there, and, yeah, I think
Kids to
I don't
see
know
the
if there's
quick trucks
liability
and
crap
stuff.
that we gotta worry about, but that'd be fun.
We did that when we opened the facility, and we did get we promoted it really heavy. We did get some turnout, I would say maybe 20, 30 people that came through at the time, which actually in today's
When we get
world is a
here.
lot of people, but that might not be might not be a bad idea. So thank you for that suggestion.
It's a great suggestion.
Let people see stuff, climb on it, walk through it.
Yeah.
It's not the same, but sort of piggybacking on Megan's idea is that I feel like we should post, like the city should post the agenda, the packet on social media as soon, like, as when we get it, then it can go out to the public, because maybe we'll get more engagement, probably not, but I just think we continue to hear like, well, I didn't know that that was gonna be talked about, and I didn't, and it's like, well,
One easy way we could do it is we could just post basically a screenshot of the agenda
And then link right
and
to
then
it.
put a link to the packet right there. I'll speak with our Facebook person.
Expert.
I like that idea too.
thanks, Brandon.
Anything else? Anything else? No. I just have one thing. Last meeting, I recognized this side of the room for the Niagara concerns, but I didn't acknowledge your guys on this side of the room. And I realized it after the fact, but I want to recognize your guys' effort too over here. Because I think the baseline starting point was fantastic. And we had to start somewhere, and collaboratively, we came up with a great plan. So, and I forgot you guys. I want to apologize for it, but I'll officially recognize that.
No, and I guess I would double then down on this, the open house just a couple days ago, and obviously, I mean, we're gonna piss off some people no matter what we do and how we do it, but, you know, I had people there that told me afterwards that they appreciated it, and they appreciated the ability to talk one-on-one, because they are intimidated, maybe it's too strong of a word, but, like, the certain voices drown out some of their conversations and questions that they wanted to have, that they didn't feel comfortable having in that big group type setting. So, while many may not appreciate the format, many did appreciate the format, and so I think we just got to keep trying.
You got to start somewhere, and I think that was achieved. So, thank you for all what you did. All right. Motion to adjourn.
Did
Oh,
you make it?
motion.
I'm making it.
Oh, I'm seconding.
All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Aye.